Weren't you supposed to take a couple days off, lady? Just enjoy the game and take a break, like you said you were gonna do. Nope, can't do it. I woke up this morning with my mind completely stewing, thinking about everything I experienced in Cyberpunk last night, and I just can't resist the urge to get it all out and talk about it. So first things first, this game is not family friendly. This game is very adult. I had seen a few videos here and there. Once again, I'll reiterate, I didn't follow the game very closely because I like to keep things a surprise. I still saw some scenes where they showed a bunch of ads, and the ads were pretty, well, revealing. I'm going to have to cut the heck out of my experience because there is a constant barrage of swears, and I don't mean simple swears like sh**, I mean way worse ones, words that I don't even make a habit of saying, so you'll have to use your imagination. There's also a whole lot of boobs. So many boobs, I could never try to avoid them all. The only option I have is to make a supercut sort of video here where I'm only showing safe clips that are relevant. My character creation clip was already ruined by the time I got down to customizing my character's body. Like I said, boobs. So because of this, I'm going to launch a Patreon page for the keeping of more adult and salacious content. All of the unedited, uncensored things I absolutely cannot monetize here on YouTube. Not just for this game, but for Baldur's Gate 3 as well. I'm constantly running into issues with not being able to monetize on YouTube because of adult content. Even adult content that I've censored myself doesn't fly, just won't pass the verification checks, so I'll be setting that Patreon up very soon. I had actually had this planned for about a week or so now, and I already made a Patreon video explaining all of the perks I'm going to offer. If it seems a little outdated by the time I actually upload it, it's because I made it this past weekend, and I haven't had a chance to get my Patreon page in order to actually launch the whole thing. Likely I'm going to spend a chunk of time this week just getting that page set up and filled with content. Once it's good enough, I'll drop the Patreon video, since I'm using it as an intro video on the page, and so that people can know about it here as well. I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that's in that Patreon video now though, stuff that mostly revolves around the character I chose to create for my Cyberpunk game. Ah yes, it comes back and makes sense why I brought it up to begin with now. So my last video I mentioned at the end that I was going to recreate my character from Battletech. She is Kyoryutin, like I said, future space Japanese, and a noble. So when I saw a Corpo, it seemed like a good fit. I was a little disappointed that my origin story was just as a lackey though. I expected to be a little higher up in the food chain, maybe a suit, maybe an office, something like that. Everyone in the building is a total jerk to me too. Talking to NPCs seems like a complete waste of time as most of them will outright tell you to get lost in a very unpleasant, cussing way. Still, I was really psyched that I was in this massively Japanese company called Arasaka, and the environment as well. Even on the news when I was going to my apartment, they were talking about the Matsuri festival. So I've got to tell you, it felt like making my Battletech character in this game was going almost too perfectly. Disclaimer: Mmogurl is a complete and total Nipponophile, or more commonly known as a weeb. While many weebs obsess over the Japanese lifestyle by watching anime, Mmogurl has actually taken extra steps to immerse herself in the culture further. She is an active member of a Kenjutsu dojo and has been studying classical Japanese swordsmanship on and off since 2012. She also imports umeboshi, more commonly referred to as pickled plums, from Japan, and actually eats them with her rice. She has learned how to cook many traditional Japanese recipes and cooks them at least 3 times a week, if not more. She uses chopsticks for anything that's noodles or rice, and even bought lounging haurori for her husband. This might have been a selfish act on her part, though. Okay, enough about that. So I'm going to talk about the Corpo Story, which will probably have some spoilers. I have no way of knowing how many spoilers since I don't know how different the origin stories actually make the rest of the game. I'm not sure if the games all put you in the same position after the origin story or if they all remain relatively different. Either way, this is how mine has gone so far. So, in your Corpo origin story, you're basically given this job by your boss to assassinate a bigwig. You know it's not good, but you can't say no. Your boss gives you the data shard with a ton of surveillance info on your target, a woman named Abernathy, and a stack of money to get the job done. You get out of the meeting with your boss and get called by your friend Jackie. You guys decide to meet up at Lizzie's bar, and as you're telling him about the crap job you just got forced to take, 2 guys show up and demand the data shard from you. They work for Abernathy, and they sever your neural connections to everything Arasaka, leaving you completely vulnerable and a mess. They even try to take you from the bar to kill you, but Jackie steps in the middle and threatens to make the job a lot harder for them. They settle for getting the data shard and leave. Now you are done with Arasaka, completely locked out, and you have no choice but to take up the mercenary lifestyle with your pal Jackie. The game fast forwards 6 months in a montage showing everything that you've been up to adjusting to this new life. The game introduces you to several new characters at this point. It was just one after the next of interesting new people involved in the story. First you meet T-Bug. I'm not really sure who she is. You never really meet her in person, it's always over the phone. But she seems to be like an intel type, helps you gather information and do remote hacking and stuff like that. She gives you the rundown on basic training before your first combat job too. Then you head over to meet Victor the Ripper, and it's not as bad as it sounds. He's basically a doctor of sorts who can surgically install new upgrades. Your first set of available parts is some new cybernetic eyes as well as a new hand. I actually really liked Victor as a character and thought he would make a good potential romance interest. He had a really decent attitude and was one of the first characters I could actually talk to besides Jackie, with additional dialogue choices to get to know him a little better. You also meet his shopkeeper, Misty, that is dating Jackie. I was actually a little disappointed by this because everyone had suggested that Jackie would be a love interest. While I didn't like him based solely on his looks, I did end up really liking his personality and could totally see him growing on me.
So you can be nice when you feel like it.
When am I not nice?
Always.
I'm always never not nice.
You can talk to him at this point in the game though, and he'll say that he's been with Misty for over a year. Unless something happens to Misty, it doesn't look like things are going to happen between you and him, which kinda sucks, but oh well. There better be other fish in the sea. Now you head off to meet Dex, a new fixer that Jackie has lined up a job with. He's a voluptuous man with a golden arm and some sweet shades. He wants to size you up and see how reliable you can be, so he asks you to grab a biochip. Says it's a simple job, but boy does it turn out to be anything but simple. The chip belongs to someone from Arasaka Corp, and about now you're thinking, why me? So he tells you he has an informant that is going to help named Evelyn Parker, and that she wants to meet up with one of the team before moving forward with the plan. He then tells you about a faction called Maelstrom that jumped a Militech convoy and stole something good. The Flathead, a combat bot prototype that we somehow need to get the Arasaka chip. This part is sort of unclear to me. It doesn't seem apparent how it's relevant to the chip, or even if it is. Dex explains that he bought the bot from Maelstrom, but then a struggle for power occurred and the guy he bought it from, Brick, got killed by his friend Royce, who then took over the gang. Wow, that's confusing. Basically, Dex doesn't know that the new leader, Royce, is going to honor the deal, but he still wants his bot that he paid for. You then have the choice to start by meeting with Evelyn or to meet with Maelstrom. I chose to start with Evelyn myself because I'm not real wild about walking into a den of psychopaths and trying to take back something they're very likely not going to want to give me. So I hop it over to Lizzie's bar and get to meet the handsome Mateo, another guy I wouldn't mind romancing if given the option. His eyes make him look a little bit odd, but what the hell, he's probably the hottest guy I've seen so far. It's too bad you don't get to talk to him for long before Evelyn introduces herself. She asks you to join her in a private room, and then the plot thickens. So the two of you discuss the job, what you're going to be stealing for her, a relic from Arasaka. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure what exactly a relic is. Evelyn mentions that Arasaka was working on personality transfer technology, and so I have to assume it has something to do with that. She continues telling you that it's being held at Konpeki Plaza, a fancy Japanese hotel, and here's where it gets crazy. Who's holding the relic? The Emperor's frickin' son, Yorinobu Arasaka. What? Hear it straight from Evelyn's lips.
It's on the lips of everyone in the city. Saburo Arasaka's only surviving son, heir apparent to the Arasaka Empire, in town. Please.
Apparently, Yorinobu is on the outs with his father, and so he is not really a team player with dear old dad. Evelyn has intel that Yori has stolen the chip that you're after from an Arasaka laboratory and made a deal with a company called Netwatch to sell it to them. But how the heck are we going to steal it from him before he sells it? That's when things get kind of crazy, as Evelyn reveals that she is going to show you Yorinobu's suite at the hotel through a brain dance. Brain dances are basically like, how do I describe it? Someone records a memory and then it's edited so that you can experience that memory as that person. Somehow Evelyn has a brain dance of Yori's room and is going to show it to you so that you can try to figure out where he has the relic hidden. She brings you to a Mox. From what I can figure so far, Mox are people who work on brain dances by either developing and editing them or potentially just people that sell the experiences to others. On the way, V puts two and two together and asks how the hell she has a BD in the first place of Yuri's suite. You find out that she's sleeping with the Emperor's son and has been into his place personally. Just wow, lady. Evelyn brings you to meet Judy, our Mox, and she basically explains everything about brain dances to you. She even tells you that not only can you watch a brain dance as normal, but you can go into the raw footage of one, separating yourself from the viewer's perspective and searching for clues around the scene that can be found on a visual, thermal, or even audio layer. The whole thing is really cool, and while I had no clue what I was doing initially, I figured it out pretty quickly. She starts you off with a test BD, and then inserts you into Evelyn's memory at Yorinobu's place. Okay, now I've got to sidetrack a little bit from the story and get back to what I was talking about in the beginning. Remember how I mentioned my character from Battletech? Well, her name is Mitsuko, and as I'll mention in my Patreon video later this week, I wrote a ton of fanfiction about her. A ton. I mean, like, probably 2 long novels worth. What the heck did I write about? I mean, it might be confusing to some how I could possibly write so much about a character I play in a weekly RPG on Roll20 every week. That is, until you understand the details. So I mentioned she's a noble, right? We basically call her Lady Gozen all of the time, and I actually had to sacrifice all of my potential to be good at mech combat just to put enough points to becoming a worthwhile noble. Even still, I'm considered a peon to most of the higher-ups, basically having a baron title. So what did my ridiculous character do? Well, she sent a marriage proposal directly to the son of the coordinator of the Draconis Combine. Now remember, Draconis Combine is Space Japan in Battletech, and the coordinator is basically the title of Emperor. So I sent a message to the Emperor's son. Seeing the correlation yet? We are playing in an alternate Battletech universe, and so in our game, the guy who was supposed to be the coordinator has been killed, and his son soon takes over, but not before my character managed to get in pretty good with him. So after about 3 years of playing this game and trying to win this guy over, she is now slated to marry him, and ultimately I'm going to have to give up my character as she will have to move back to the coordinator's home planet. So can you see why this is so freaking amazingly weird for me? I knew nothing about the story of Cyberpunk. I decide, hey, I'm going to make my character Lady Gozen in this game. It then turns out to be heavily influenced by Japanese culture, and then throughout my story I'm actually running into the son of the Emperor. Nani? I mean, I'm just blown away. It's just such a crazy coincidence considering the very same character I chose to make is so close to living the life in this game. I mean, sort of, right? So now we get to the point where I share my opinions on how the game has been so far, and I'm going to start directly with the likely implications of this plot to take the chip from Yorinobu. While I know many people wouldn't have a problem with this job, I have a huge problem with it. Sure, Yorinobu isn't as cute as my Theodore. Yes, that's his name. But it's still so similar, it's creepy. And kind of awesome. Even in official Battletech lore, Theodore didn't get along well with his father Takashi, and he was basically exiled to the Legion of Vega where they sent criminals and the like, as if he was actually trying to kill his own son. And here we have the same sort of situation where Yorinobu has been cut off by his father for being disobedient. It's just, ugh. I'm going to have a really hard time if the game railroads me into killing him. In fact, I'm feeling like I want to kick Evelyn to the curb and work for Yorinobu myself and maybe potentially weasel my way into being his mistress. Oh my god, then I could really live out my character's life in a game environment and it would be amazing. But sadly, I don't think that's going to happen. Why? Because so far everything has been railroading my character forward. There hasn't been any kind of real choice so far in the story, and granted, I'm not going to make a final judgment here since I'm still very early on into the game. But I'm going to make a prediction and we'll see if I'm right. I bet when it comes down to actually entering Yorinobu's suite that I will have 2 ways to steal the chip. One will be the stealth option. Get in, get out, nothing happens, I'm golden. Kind of boring, but hey, at least I won't have to kill the guy. Or 2, which I think is a lot more likely to happen in either one of 2 variations. Variation 1, Yorinobu catches me trying to steal the chip and I have to kill him. Or variation 2, his big nasty Cybertron man catches me trying to steal the chip and I have to kill him, or get killed myself. I don't really see them giving me an option that I'm going to want at this point, and that kind of sucks. I'm hoping I'm wrong though. I want the option to betray Evelyn and work for Yorinobu. Even though I think a lot of people wouldn't feel this way, given my unique situation though, it's just what I really want to do. If it happens, I'm going to be in absolute heaven. I mean it. Just heaven. I'm really expecting there to be more choices down the road too, because when I think about games like Fallout New Vegas, or heck, even Baldur's Gate 3, I think about all of the choices you have that are always at least two massively different ways of doing things, but usually even more than that. I remember in New Vegas, I took the Black Widow perk, and I was able to get a special dialogue with Benny. I know most people would think this was frickin' insane, considering Benny was the one who left me to die in a ditch at the beginning of the game, but I actually ended up sleeping with him. Given every opportunity to murder Benny and get revenge, I never did. And he left me a really sweet note before, he left to go make a deal with Caesar and got killed by the Legion. Too bad, I was really hoping I'd be able to get him as a companion or something. But even still, it was crazy that I was even able to do all of that. I showed my husband and he was blown away. He was a guy who had spent 1,000 hours or more playing this game, and he had still never heard about the possibility because he never played as a female. So it's really disappointing when you get a game as ambitious as Cyberpunk that doesn't give you a lot of leeway. The only real choice I've had so far is whether to talk to Maelstrom or Evelyn first. NPCs seem completely useless and just kind of take up space. I've only found 2 other people I could even talk to. This guy Frank from my origin story, as well as another dude that offered me a quest for fighting a robot. Granted, I haven't explored much outside of the main story yet because the city is frickin' chaotic. It's just insanity most of the time. I'm hearing gunshots go off and people are yelling. There are just masses of people all over the place. For someone with ADD, it is a bit of an overload, honestly. And that brings me to another thing I don't really like, the driving. I thought the car was supposed to be like the best part of this game, but I can't drive the thing to save my life. Seriously, I'm playing a clip right now of me trying to just drive down the street, and I'm hitting people, running into other cars, can't figure out how to exit the car. It's a train wreck. And then as soon as I finally manage to exit the car, the cops are after me because God forbid I hit some pedestrians. Granted, eventually I figured out the controls a little bit better, and I was able to switch the view to a third person outside the car, and that made things a lot easier. Still, the handling of the car seems to be really overtuned. If you go slightly to the left, it goes too far and you have to overcompensate to the right, and then you just keep swinging back and forth, unable to bring the car under control. Given the tight area of the city, with corners everywhere, people everywhere, too much stuff everywhere, it's not the easiest of places to learn how to drive. I'd almost prefer an auto drive function like they had in Final Fantasy 15 so that I wasn't constantly stuck having to deal with it. I'm driving slow like an old lady and it's just not fun. Maybe the controls are too sensitive on PC, or maybe I'm just a bad driver, but it's not the most pleasant experience for me. I'll need a lot more practice to make it so. Whew, I've got to say, when I first started writing the script, I didn't expect to go into the whole story like this, but then I found myself just writing it all out, and why not? It's pretty interesting. So I might as well give some information as well as my opinions on it, right? But now that the script is up to 6 pages long, I'm thinking maybe I shared a little too much. And why didn't I spend my Thursday morning playing the game? I have to see what happens with Yorinobu. I'm so not going to kill him. I just won't do it. I also have to add that while I did mention some negatives about the game, or things I wasn't really wild about, I'm not panning the game by any means, not at all. I'm really intrigued by the story, and by looking at the map and all of the icons and quest markers, it looks like there is no end of things to do. I haven't even touched the surface of that stuff either. I haven't started a romance with anyone, I have barely engaged in combat so far, only having basic training in the first job we did. Although, I did get a katana, and I am so ready to go when a fight happens again. I will say that the game can be a bit overwhelming though. You almost have to take it in small chunks because otherwise there would be so much new information to process that your brain just couldn't handle it. Or at least mine had trouble handling it. Your miles may vary though. So who else stayed up until 3 a.m. playing this last night? I really enjoyed myself and I found it hard to shut my computer down and go to sleep. I'm still not even sure why I'm still writing this instead of playing, besides the fact that I really just wanted to express how awesome I think the experience has been so far. And man, once again, I hope they don't make me kill my RP Theodore / Yorinobu Bay. That would just about break my heart, and I don't think I can even do it. The only complaint that matters to me right now is just let me have more autonomy. So tell me how your games are going. What are you playing? Nomad, Street Kid, or Corpo like me? Any favorite weapons so far? Your favorite characters you've met? Are the characters you meet different in each game, or are they mostly the same? Has anyone started a romance? Now I'm going to try to stop working and actually play this game for the next few days. Who am I kidding though? Wasn't I just talking about getting that Patreon up? Never a break around here. Enjoy yourselves in Cyberpunk though. Leave me some comments about your games below. See you guys.